Love sent at 7:10 last night. Is that
Yes,
generally the order that y'all intend to call these people?
barring any exceptional circumstances, Your Honor, or the need to go in a different way.
Okay.
Yes, that.
All right, so Butler and Baker are both acknowledged to be on a witness list. And then is that crime scene tech next?
Yeah, no, Your Honor, there will be a witness between, I believe, two witnesses in between the crime scene tech. That would be Sanders Pitts, or Pitt, however it shows on your end, Pitt Sanders. There was a name change.
Okay. And who after that?
And just 1 second, Your Honor, I'm pulling that up for you. It would be Officer Trigo, the crime scene tech, excuse me,
Okay,
followed by Lieutenant Leduc.
okay. And all of those people, it's not disputed. No, it is disputed as to Officer Leduc, I guess, for lit with the others are included in email. And if y'all could just point out people are on, but we can get started with the first 4 people at least. And as you say, one of them's already out there on deck?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, and is the jury ready? All right, is there anything else we need to deal with before we get the jury in? All right, let's get started. You can go ahead and bring them in. Do you want to have your witness making the way in, please? That's fine. They can just stand next to the stand. Yeah, come on up. The jury's on the way in, and then an officer will swear you. Thank you. All right, Ms. Brown, I guess you're gonna handle this witness, so if yeah, thank you.
Vincent Butler.
Lord, just a little bit so it's directly in front of your mouth, so the court reporter can pick up what you're saying. There we go. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Good morning. Are you employed?
Yes.
Where are
I'm
you?
sorry. Can you say your name again? Because I didn't get that.
Vincent Butler.
Thank you.
Okay. And where are you employed?
With the City of Atlanta Police Department.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a police sergeant.
How long have you been working in the capacity as a law enforcement officer?
November will be 12 years.
And how long have you been a police sergeant?
For 2 years.
And what are your duties and responsibilities, Sergeant Butler, in that capacity as a sergeant?
I'm assigned to the Strategic Response Unit, and we handle any mass gatherings in the city, which would include protests, as well as the academy site that we're having built.
And what was your role or rank prior to becoming a sergeant with the Atlanta Police Department?
I was an officer.
And did you share similar responsibilities in that role, or were they different from what you do now?
They were different.
Could you please explain for the jury what your duties and responsibilities were in your prior rank as just a regular police officer?
My duties were to respond to 911 calls in the downtown Zone 5 area.
And have you, excuse me, have you been post-certified the entire time that you have been employed with the Atlanta Police Department?
Yes.
I am now directing your attention to the date of, well, let me ask you a few more questions. Sergeant Butler, do you work any additional jobs outside of your work with the Atlanta Police Department?
Yes.
What else do you do?
I'm a courtesy officer at my apartment complex.
And how did you obtain that job?
It was available through the apartment. They have certain apartment complexes across the city that offer that to Atlanta police officers.
And what is the name of the apartment complex where you serve as a courtesy officer?
Columbia Crest Apartments.
And in your capacity as a courtesy officer, what is it that your duties and responsibilities are for that particular assignment?
Respond to courtesy complaints, calls that are generated by the residents at the apartment complex.
And what is the address of the apartment complex that you serve as a courtesy officer?
1903 Drew Drive, Atlanta, Georgia.
How long have you worked in that capacity with that extra job?
Since 2014.
And that address that you provided, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what county it is situated in?
In Fulton County.
I want to turn your attention, Sergeant Butler, to the date of Tuesday, April the 28th, 2015. Do you recall if you worked your job at the Atlanta Police Department on that day?
Yes.
What was your watch or tour of duty for that day?
It was morning watch, which is overnight.
Okay. What are the hours that typically accompany someone who, what hours does a person who is on morning watch work?
Usually 10 at night to 6 in the morning, or 11 at night to 7 in the morning.
And were those the hours that were typical of someone on morning watch in, say, April 28th, 2015?
Yes.
Okay. Or do you recall around about what time you got off on that day of April 28th, 2015?
It would have been around 6 a.m. in the morning.
And what, if anything, do you recall after getting off of work on April the 28th, Tuesday, April the 28th, 2015?
Upon arriving home, I observed an Atlanta police officer parked on Drew Drive, and it seemed to be that there was an incident that happened at the location.
And what gave you belief that there was an incident that had occurred in that area?
The officer was out his patrol car with his cruise lights running, and one members from our maintenance team at the property outside with him as well.
And at that time, how were you dressed?
I was in a full Atlanta police uniform.
Are you assigned a patrol vehicle or any type of cruiser as you described?
At that time, I was not.
And the officer that you said you saw walking about in the vicinity of the apartment complex, did you know that individual?
Yes, I did.
Who do you know him or her to be?
He's a Zone 1 officer, and he was also in my academy class.
What's his name?
His name is Officer Hill.
You know his first name?
I can't recall his first name.
Is it fair to say that you've had enough contact to recognize him?
Yes.
And no, okay. And is it also fair to say that he knows of you as well?
Yes.
And when you saw Officer Hill walking about the premises of the apartment complex where you serve as the courtesy officer, what, if anything, did you do?
I asked him, why was he at the location, and he gave me a rundown on the reason why.
And what was the weather conditions like that day? Was it sunny or was it dark?
The sun was coming up, but it was still pretty much dark that morning.
Was Officer Hill the only person, let me rephrase that. Was Officer Hill the only law enforcement officer present on the scene at that time?
That I can remember, yes.
And did you come to learn in the course of that investigation of that incident what the purpose of him being present was?
I did.
What was that?
There were multiple shots fired at that location.
Did you happen to see any signs that shots had been fired in that location?
Yes, in 1903 on Drew Drive, there were several shell casings that were riddled across the street.
And in your capacity as a courtesy officer, were you at that time required to respond to that incident, even though there were other law enforcement officers present?
Yes, just to get information to pass over to our leasing manager.
And what information did you pass over to, information, if any, did you pass over to law enforcement present?
I gave the Officer Hill the name of the occupant of one of the apartments that maintenance let him in so he could do a welfare check on the occupants in that apartment.
Do you recall after this time the name that you gave?
I don't recall the name I gave.
And how were you able to locate that name at that time if you then knew for Officer Hill to continue his investigation?
I was able to locate the name of the person who was on the lease for that particular apartment from a rent roll list given to me by the property manager.
And what is a rent roll list, if you will?
It's a list that details each leasee and what apartment they live in at the location.
Is that something you still get to this day?
I don't currently get it with our new management that we have, no.
Why was it something that you had at that time?
Because it was what management was handing me out periodically at that time.
And after providing the information to Officer Hill from the rent roll sheet, was he at all able to make contact with the tenant of that particular apartment?
I'm unsure. He was given the name and the apartment number, and he would have further searched and tried communication with that tenant.
About how long was your involvement at this crime scene where you described law enforcement was already present?
Very brief, I would say 5, maybe 10 minutes.
During the time that you were there, did the tenant, during the duration of the time that you were there aiding in the investigation, did the tenant who occupied the apartment that was struck by the bullet defects, did she ever show up?
No.
Did after you left the premises, did you have any further, did you attempt to contact the occupant of that particular unit?
I did not.
Do you know if management did contact the occupant of that unit?
I know they made a attempt, but I don't know if they made contact.
Do you know if there were multiple persons or only a single person that lived in the based on your role?
They were on.
At that, excuse me, at that time, specifically being April 28th, 2015, were you assigned a body worn camera at that time?
No, the department did not have body worn cameras at that time.
Were you required in either your capacity as a courtesy officer with the Crestview apartment complex or as an Atlanta Police Department officer to do any further work in this particular matter?
No.
And on that morning that you saw law enforcement out there, was there any other apartment units that, to your knowledge, that were affected by the gunfire that took place?
Yes, there was the second caller about the incident.
Did you provide any information or assistance with respect to that caller?
I spoke with her, with Officer Hill about what happened and what time she heard the rounds being fired.
Is it fair to say that is about all that you got at that point from all that you gave in terms of conversation with that second caller?
Correct.
Just a brief indulgence. Earlier, you testified that you didn't recall the name of the tenant in that premises. Is that correct?
Correct.
If I were to show you a report from that incident, would that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Now approaching you with, take a moment to look at that, and your memory's been so refreshed, please, just look up at me without saying, reading from it, please.
Yes, sir.
Your instructions
you-
last time was to not do that.
Did you identify what it is? So that they know.
Sure, yes, sir. If I may approach. Hold on, just one second.
They just didn't know what you were handing them.
I am now personally witness with the same document. So, when your memory is going to refresh, you may look back, I'll check it.
Yeah.
All that you gave to Officer Hill at that time.
Yes.
What was her name?
Keanu Chapman.
Just a few more questions. I'm sorry. You know-
Go ahead.
Sergeant Butler, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You worked with AP in 2015, you'll work with APD now, is that true?
Yes.
You were a courtesy officer at this location.
Yes.
You You were subpoenaed to appear here today to give some testimony about the information that you have or remember from 2015. Is that right?
Yes,
You responded, or you came to that location in the early morning of April 28th, 2015, true?
yes,
You did not have anything to do with the investigation of what had happened that night, isn't that right?
no,
All right. Officer Hill, someone you went to the academy with, was present when you got there,
yes,
and you were made aware that there had been apparently some sort of shooting at the location. Is that right?
yes,
Now, you were asked a while ago about the resident of one of those apartments that suffered some bullet defects. You remember that question?
yes,
You were unable to remember on your own who lived in that apartment, true?
prior to seeing the report, true,
Right, well, the report you were shown wasn't your report, right?
correct,
You didn't write a report that night, did you?
no,
Okay, so it's not that your memory was refreshed. You essentially just saw a name that was written in someone else's report, and that's how you're able to say, well, that's the person who lived in that apartment. Isn't that true?
no, it was the name given based off the rent roll list that I gave to Officer Hill.
Right, but you have no independent recollection of that other than being shown officer or another report with that name in it. Isn't that right?
Could you rephrase your question?
Sure. As you sat here on the stand and you were asked who lived in the apartment, you have no independent recall as to who lived in the apartment. True?
True,
All right. You were shown a report that is not your report, but that has the name in it, and that's how you're able to tell the jury what name was given on that morning. True?
true,
Okay. You were asked by the state whether or not you know the name of Philip, somebody or the other, and you don't know anything about that person, do you?
I do not,
All right. You don't know anything about the whereabouts of anyone who lived in the apartment by the name that you mentioned a little bit earlier, Kiana, something or the other, right? You don't know anything about that person.
I do know based off the rent roll that she was on the lease during 2015 when the incident occurred.
Right. You know from the rent roll that person stayed in that apartment, correct?
Yes,
And if I heard you correctly, the extent of your involvement in this case was about 5 to 10 minutes there at the scene, talking to Officer Hill, talking to someone else who had made a phone call. Is that right?
yes,
All right. You had no further involvement in the case,
correct,
never called to testify,
correct,
never called to identify anyone,
correct.
just called in here this morning and shown that report from someone else. True?
I saw the report yesterday, but yes.
All right. Sergeant Butler, thank you. That's all I've got.
Any other questions for the defense? Any redirect? Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. You are excused. Call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the state now calls to the stand Officer Gary Hay. For the night. All right. Do you recall, and I want to direct your attention to the date of Thursday, May the 7th, 2015. Do you recall working that day?
Yes, I do.
Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what, if anything, you remember about working that day?
During that day, it was a normal shift. I received a 911 call in the area of 151 Cleveland Avenue in reference to a male brandishing what was described as a machine gun. Responded to the call, arrived on scene at the call.
Okay. Excuse me. What county is that address of 151 Cleveland Avenue situated?
Fulton County.
And do you know what is located at that address? A residence, a commercial building?
It's a gas station.
Yes. And that was in 2015. Do you still know that location to be consisting of, well, to be a gas station?
Yes, I do.
Is it the same gas station that it once was in 2015?
They typically change hands. They'll go from a Exxon to a BP to a Chevron. So
Around what time were you dispatched to the 151 Cleveland Avenue location on that day?
honestly, I don't remember.
Okay. If I showed you, did you prepare a report for anything related to this case?
Yes, I did.
If I were to show you a copy of that report, would it refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
Just so you know what you're doing. No showing the defense. Okay, all right. I'm approaching the witness, having been shown that it's not needed. Take a moment to refresh your recollection with that, and once you have had an opportunity to do so, look back up at me and don't breathe. Okay, has your memory been refreshed, Officer Baker?
Yes.
Okay, around what time were you dispatched to that location of 151 Cleveland Avenue?
Approximately 2 a.m.
And what zone is Cleveland, the address that I just mentioned, situated?
At that time, it's situated in Zone 3.
Is it changed?
No, still
Okay.
Zone 3.
All right. All right. You indicated that dispatch informed you that there was a person with a machine gun. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Okay. When you heard the terminology of machine gun, what kind of firearm did you have in mind at that time while you were being dispatched?
At the time, that would be something described as maybe a rifle or a weapon that fires in rapid succession, maybe carrying a large amount of rounds, capacity of a large amount of rounds, something to that effect.
Did dispatch provide you with an identity of the caller?
They described they gave a description of a person, and they also gave a description of a vehicle as well.
Well, that's not my question, but I'll ask you something about that. Did they provide you a description of the caller?
No, they didn't. They didn't. I believe it was an anonymous caller or unknown caller at the time.
Did now speaking to what you just stated on direct, did you have a description of the individual that was said to be holding the machine gun style firearm that you were told?
Yes, they did give. I remember they did give us a description, but I do not remember what the description was.
Would looking at your report help refresh that? your
Possibly,
memory? All right,
possibly.
you can please do so, and then when you had your memory refreshed, get back up with you. Okay, has your memory been refreshed?
Yes.
All right. What was the description that you were given?
Well, the description I was given was of a vehicle that was occupied by a male and a female, and there was a male inside the vehicle, a male with a female operating the vehicle, and the male had gone in and out of the store.
Okay. And did you in fact arrive at the location to which you were said to go to at that time?
Yes, I did.
And upon your arrival at that location of 151 Cleveland Avenue, what, if anything, did you see at that time?
When I arrived on scene, there was a male coming out of the store. Um, he walked out of the store and got into the vehicle that was described to me in the call remarks.
Let's unpack some of what you just said. Do you recall which side of the vehicle he got into?
I believe he got into the passenger side of the vehicle.
And where was the female person that was accompanying him that you mentioned earlier?
I believe she was in the driver's side of the vehicle.
What description for the vehicle were you given?
That was a black Chevrolet Impala, I believe.
Were you given a license plate or tag number for it?
Yes, I was.
What were the tags that you were given, to your recollection?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's in my report.
Go ahead and take a moment to refresh your memory on your report. Okay, excuse me. What was the tag of the vehicle that you were given?
The license plate was PXL 8880.
I'm sorry, could you say that phonetically because I couldn't hear?
Paul X-ray Lincoln 8880.
Was it a Georgia tag?
Yes, I believe so.
Were you assigned a body cam at that time?
No,
And is it, why not?
they had not been issued to us at that time. At least in my career, I hadn't been issued a body camera.
At that time?
At that time, yeah, correct.
And did you arrive to that location alone, or were you accompanied?
I was accompanied by another officer. They sent another backup officer just in case.
And when you say a backup officer just in case, why would dispatch send a backup officer just in case?
Typically, when there's a call involving a person with a firearm, an armed person, they want to send a second or maybe even a third officer, just because, just for our safety and the public safety in general. It's kind of believed by us that if you have more than one officer, maybe two or three, then a less amount of force has to be used. And that way we can de-escalate situations better when there's more of us there.
All right. So when you arrived to that location, what, if anything, did you do? Did you have your lights on?
Not that I recall.
Did you have your siren activated?
Not that I recall.
All right. Did you exit the vehicle?
When I arrived on scene, I exited the vehicle. I saw the male that was described in the call remarks. I saw the vehicle that was described in the call remarks. I saw the male come out of the store, immediately walk to the vehicle. At that time, I approached the vehicle, asked the male if he could step out. He stepped out. I asked the male if he had a gun. He said no. At that point, I could look into the back seat of the car and saw a gun laying on the back seat of the car. From what I remember, I think the male immediately admitted that it was his gun. And at that point, we went ahead and detained him. And I believe the second officer there, I think he detained the female. And we just went from there.
Right. So I want to unpack a few things that you just said.
Sure.
All right. Earlier you said he initially said he didn't have one.
Correct.
But then what changed after you located that firearm?
Once I located the firearm, once I saw it, he immediately admitted, "Oh, that's my gun."
Was it in plain view, or was it something that you had to look a little more intently for?
It was in plain view.
Is this the type of firearm that you saw, well, the firearm that you saw that day, is it the type of firearm that you can hold with one hand, or that you must use two hands in order to discharge the ammunition?
In my belief, to use a weapon like that, you would need to use both hands.
Is this a weapon that is a single firearm, or is it one that shoots its ammunition in rapid succession?
Honestly, I don't know. With that weapon, I believe that weapon's able to be shot as quickly as you squeeze the trigger.
Are rifles generally firearms that are, that discharge ammunition in rapid succession?
They can be.
When you observe the firearm on the back seat, what caused you to seize it?
It was described in the call remarks as that type of weapon. Typically, when people call the police, they may not know exactly, they may not be gunsmiths necessarily or know exactly specifications of a gun, but they'll describe it as best they can. It's a weapon that someone would describe as a machine gun or something of that sort.
Is it unlawful to have a firearm?
No.
So why would you seize that firearm?
From what I can remember, and from what I can remember, it appeared to be a weapon that was illegally modified.
And when you say illegally modified, what is it that you mean by that?
Those weapons can be shortened, may not have a stock, or have a stock and not supposed to have a stock.
Are you saying stock?
Stock.
Stock.
S-T-O-C-K, stock. It's like the back part of the weapon, like a brace almost.
And did this weapon have a stock?
To be honest, I don't remember. I do remember that we made the charge on the individual because the weapon appeared to be legally modified, and the warrant was signed by the judge, and the charge was made at that night. So.
And when that weapon was seized, well, let me back up. You said that when you saw that firearm, that the persons within the vehicle were detained. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Why did you detain him?
He was the person described in the call remarks, so he was detained for our investigation, and he was also arrested because of weed possession of the vehicle as well.
Okay, all right. When you detain someone, what does that look like in an ordinary stop for an officer?
Most times they're placed in handcuffs. Try to make it clear that they're detained and they're aware that they're detained. They're not going to jail necessarily right now. They just can't leave.
And in this instance were the occupants of that vehicle detained by handcuffs or by some other means?
From what I remember, I believe they were placed in handcuffs.
Were they ordered out of the vehicle?
I believe they were asked to step out of the vehicle and they complied and placed them in handcuffs for the detention.
And about how long did that detention last?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Were you able at any point to obtain names or identities for the persons that were detained at that time?
I'm sure we obtained the name of the detainee, the male detainee.
And what name did you obtain?
I believe it was Quindarius Zachary.
And were you given a name for the female occupant of the vehicle?
I don't remember. Don't recall.
Would that be contained within your report?
Possibly.
Okay, would you take a moment to refresh?
Sure.
Has your memory been refreshed?
Yes.
Okay, what do you remember at this point?
I believe the female detainee was named Summer.
Okay. Did you get a last name for it?
No, I did not.
Was she taken into custody, full custody after being detained?
I don't believe so.
And why not?
I believe she was released. She didn't have any, there weren't any appropriate charges for her to be placed on.
Do you know to whom that vehicle belonged?
I don't know.
Okay. When you arrived to the location of 151 Cleveland Avenue. Did you observe the occupants of the vehicle doing anything?
When I first arrived, the male got into the vehicle. I do remember we noticed each other. We looked at each other. And he got into the vehicle and he started to kind of shuffle around the vehicle. Him and the female that were inside the vehicle. So there was
Okay.
a little bit of movement inside the car.
Okay. Now, when you say you looked at each other, can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what his demeanor was?
From what I remember, he came out of the store, took a quick glance at me, and he hurried into the vehicle.
Did he appear nervous?
He appeared in a rush. I could say that.
And in your training or excuse me, and in your training and experience, what do you understand quick movements before you make a stop to signify?
Well, in some cases, when people see the police, they may shuffle around a little bit, or maybe try to conceal something in the car, or make furtive movements to kind of put something away, or tuck something, or hide something. So
Were there any other people in the area while this investigation and detention was taking place?
I don't remember.
Did you get specifications for what the type of firearm it was, the brand or the make?
I believe it was a Bushmaster Carbon 15 .223 caliber.
And when you say 223 caliber, what do you mean?
It's just a caliber of round that the weapon shoots.
And is it fair to say that when you say round, you're talking about ammunition?
Yes.
Earlier, you testified that the firearm appeared to be shortened. In your training and experience, what does the shortening of a firearm allow for a person to do with it?
To be honest, I'm not sure, but I know it's code is illegal.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
And with respect to the length of that firearm, did you later come to detail or learn the specifications of that firearm?
It appeared to be approximately, the barrel itself appeared to be about seven inches, I believe. I need to look at the report again to remember something like
Take a
that.
moment and
Okay.
look back up. Okay, has your memory been refreshed?
Yes.
All right, you can answer the question.
So the barrel length was approximately 7 inches, and the entire weapon was approximately 20 inches in length.
Was the firearm loaded?
Yes, it was.
All right. Was there anything in the chamber?
There was a round ready to fire in the chamber, yes.
Was there any magazines or clips connected to it?
Yeah, there was a double feed magazine attached to it.
Are you familiar with the terminology banana clip?
Yes.
And when you hear that terminology, is that formal usage for a magazine or street language?
It's just informal lingo.
And if you were to hear the term banana clip, what would you understand that to be?
I would understand it to be a longer magazine in the shape of a banana that is typically like attached to a weapon or a rifle, something like a rifle. Yeah.
And were the magazines that were connected to this particular firearm?
I remember.
And you said
It's a Let's type of magazine.
Hey guys, so I'm about to go inside this school and present, and I will come back and talk to you guys around the lunch break, and I will put the stream back up. But I have to go to this engagement, so I just want to let you guys know what was going on. So, I will come back around, I guess, let's say noon, and do and we can, I guess, when they go around to lunch, and we can talk about what's happening, and I will finish the day off with y'all. All right, I am going to Payne College to speak to some students, and I will see you guys when I am done. Thank y'all.